Hi, hello everyone. Anthony Fantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd. I hope you're doing well. I'm coming on camera here to talk with you and maybe do a bit of a retrospective right now, because soon it'll be 10 years since the release of the 2014 album, self-titled record from the Canadian indie pop and indie rock outfit Always. Now, this record made quite a splash culturally in the indie scene upon release. At the time, I wasn't really a big fan of it. The album didn't really do all that much for me. I don't even think I did a super deep formal review of the project.
Always.
And I actually have gotten some pushback and feedback due to my lack of engagement with that album in recent years. Seemingly on websites like Rate Your Music, for example, the album has really held up over the years and has continued to gain a lot of favor. Also on top of it, I have gone on to enjoy much of the material the band has released since. I loved their second full-length LP, Anti-Socialites, and enjoyed the record Blue Rev they put out back in 22 quite a bit too. So a decade on, I'm kind of sitting here thinking, was there something I missed on that album, since people still seem to enjoy it so much to this day, since I went on to enjoy the band's subsequent material? So I felt I had to go back and verify whether or not my feelings, my opinions on that record, my lack of interest in it was justified. That's what I did. I went back and spun this 9-song, 32-minute album over again and found there are some very good and cute and endearing highlights, but still to this day, I don't know if this is really an album for me, and I could see why I wasn't really crazy about it at the time. I mean, Always on this record very much sits squarely and super clearly within the lanes of fuzzy, distorted twee pop, of jangle pop, of old school indie pop. There are even some elements of the band's music on this album that come across quite dreamy and even a little surfy. And I gotta say, at the point this album comes out, and still today, I would say to some degree, I am just super jaded when it comes to this stuff. Not only because I don't think this album brings anything super new or exciting or groundbreaking or stand out to the table when you're comparing it to the decades-old classic jangle pop stuff that dropped back in the 80s and 90s. But just after 2014, we were already done just moving through an entire mini revival of this stuff, with loads of washed out, lo-fi, distorted, kind of cute, faint indie pop and rock getting blogged about left and right. Slumberland Records specifically was coming out with a lot of fire albums in this time span too. But when Always hit back in 2014 with this album, it kind of felt like the last dying breath of this recent renewal of this sound. Again, I just didn't see why I would listen to this over any of the old school classic stuff, or even some of the more recent examples that were actually kind of better in my eyes in comparison. But if there was something separating Always from their indie contemporaries at the time, it was definitely their songwriting. I mean, truth be told, there were a lot of these groups that kind of came and went very quickly, just off the back of attaining or copying this kind of trademark twee jangle pop sound, and while the aesthetics were there, the tunes weren't. Always captured the sound, and they at least backed it up with some songs, some of which still stand to this day as some of the band's most beloved tracks, like Archie Marry Me. I do love a single like Party Police. With that being said, the lyrics on every single one of these tracks aren't exactly great. I think as a songwriter, frontwoman Molly Rankin would actually go on to improve quite a bit by the band's second full-length LP, which is exemplified on excellent songs such as Dreams Tonight. But again, in regards to the debut, I wouldn't say most of the lyrics are amazing or fantastic, but they're at least putting in a bit more effort than some of the fly-by-night surf indie bands coming and going at that time. And while the band did certainly attain this sound, this aesthetic, and recreated it quite accurately, I still wouldn't say the record sounds super bold or colorful or full of life. A lot of these droning, thick, distorted walls of indie guitar, to my ears, come across super bland, very lifeless, very average. The vocals, super faint much of the time too. On occasion, the drums do kind of kill it and go above and beyond and really bring life to the grooves of these cuts, but it's still not enough to make me love every single one of the songs on this album front to back. So look, I'll say this, in short, 10 years on this Always album, I'm still not really crazy about it. It's not terrible. It's not awful. I can see why people enjoy it. Everybody's got to start somewhere. And loads of great artists have just okay initial debut albums or demos or whatever. And as time has gone on, the band only seems to be gaining more attention, and for good reason. Because like I said, on Antisocialites, the songwriting, the lyrics, the choruses got so much better. The band's sound more nuanced, embracing some of those dreamier elements too, not so much leaning on those very boring and fuzzy and lifeless guitars to fill up all the space in the mix, coloring it with other elements instead. And then following things with Blue Rev, while I may not feel like the tunes on that album are as strong, the band admirably went into a super creative direction in terms of their sound and really started to experiment more with noise, with more shoegazy textures and elements. And as a result of those two albums, I feel like Always currently sits at a very interesting and creative place. One that frankly I couldn't really see coming just how by the numbers I felt like a lot of the material on their debut was. And unfortunately, even if that record is still receiving a lot of love and a lot of praise to this day, I'm still kind of there. I still hold that opinion. But what are you going to do? You're not going to call them all. I'm not going to foresee every great band or record coming. It is what it is. But it would be interesting to hear from you guys. Is this a record that holds a special place in your heart? Is this an album that you loved upon release? Maybe not so much and it grew on you later? Are you an Always fan? What is your favorite project of theirs and why? And that is going to be it. Thank you for watching. You're the best. Over here next to my head is another video you can check out. Hit that up with a link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, always, forever.